I am live. It's the Nazarite, bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore. This really is Hebrew lore from days of yore. Tonight we have a full moon, and if I'm not mistaken, it would be a partial solar eclipse, a blood moon as it's known. And I haven't done enough research on this, but we'll see how it goes here. You know what I want to talk about is this. First of all, these are astronomical phenomena, and even at the time of the Talmud, they had certain effects, let's say, on the people. So back then, they couldn't necessarily predict when it will happen. They didn't have the tools, they didn't have the measurements. They had some really fascinating measurements in the Talmud and in other texts having to do with astronomy, but I don't know if they could predict the solar eclipse, the lunar eclipse. There are different ideas of what the moon is, what the sun is. The most basic, as far as I'm concerned, the most basic is the sun represents divinity, right? The logos, the light giver, the light bringer, not in the Luciferian sense, but in the sense of its warmth, its energy, its life, its light. It's what sustains us, and we revolve around it. And the moon and it represents the masculine, and the moon represents the feminine. The moon is which revolves around the earth, the moon which waxes and wanes, the moon which is it comes to some fullness, and then it becomes smaller again until it disappears, only to be reborn again. So we know, right, the feminine with their monthly cycles, that whole thing. A lunar eclipse is a natural phenomenon, and yet in the Talmud it says that a solar eclipse is bad for the nations, or let's say not bad. It's a bad omen, and a lunar eclipse is a bad omen for the people of Israel. So the people of Israel, they say, are a lot like the moon, and the people of Israel and humanity to some degree represent the feminine. Um, so the idea is, as I said, that there are also different things having to do with the blood moon. I mean, there are so many different ideas tied in here, but I want to really keep it simple because I don't know enough about it. I really don't. I didn't do enough prep, but I just want to see where it goes. So basically, what I want to say is this: these are natural phenomena, and what we need to learn from it, if we want to if we choose to learn anything from natural phenomena from nature, is that what goes on in nature, well, we are part of nature. What goes on in nature is something that we need to acknowledge and react to, not necessarily by saying prayers, although there are prayers for the cycle of the sun, there are prayers for the cycle of the moon, and I think it basically comes back to this. We need to understand that even though the moon, which represents the children of Israel and the feminine and to some degree humanity, the counterpart of the Most High, right? We were made in God's image. We are a counterpart of sorts of a kind of divine revelation. And in Genesis, there's the whole thing on the fourth day where the sun and the moon are created. Now, I'm not going to get into the astronomical thing. I do believe that they were created before that, but as some scholars say, but on the fourth day, and again, we're not talking about 24-hour days here, we're talking about ages and epochs and millions of years, right? Things of that nature. I don't think that the world was created in 6 days, but it's 6 metaphorical days, or figurative days, and we need to learn something from it. So when you see the moon and it's full, first of all, it's shining the light from the sun, and you see it in all of its brilliance, and you also see it in all of its blemishes. There's a wonderful saying by Rav Kook, the first chief rabbi of Israel, one of my masters, who I didn't know, but I follow his teachings for many years, and study his teachings already for many years. And I forgot where I was going with this. It's a little late. So here's what I want to say. Even though these are natural phenomenon, we need to treat them as if they are things that we can learn from, right? The moon is eclipsed, and the sun is eclipsed, and the earth is in the middle there with its shadow. There's a lot to learn here. But what it basically comes down to is if you see nature acting in a certain way, see how you want to relate to it, right? You're not supposed to do anything necessarily different because of it. You're supposed to acknowledge it, and you're supposed to understand that there's something here to learn. So the moon, the full moon. Oh, this is what I wanted to say with Rav Kook. He says that the enlightened soul, the soul which is lit up, right, awake, the illuminated soul, he says, you can see all of its blemishes. And so a soul which is illuminated is constantly repenting and returning and trying to go back to its true self, right? Tshuva, returning, repentance. Because somebody who's in darkness, he could be doing the wrong things and not even know it and think he's doing the right things. But when you shine a light on him or on a situation, or take it however you want, you're able to see every little thing, the good and the bad. And so you're always in a constant motion of wanting to nitpick yourself and see where you can make things better. There are no absolutes in this world. But from everything that happens in the world, be it on Earth or outside of it, there are things to learn from the stars and from the sun, the moon, the revolving, the movement of things, even if they are predetermined, even if we can now, with modern day astronomy, uh, predict when things are going to happen. You may not want to look at it as a good omen or a bad omen, but simply as something is going on now, and there I have a chance to do something. Meaning, even if it's known that it's going to happen, and it was very well known that today is going to be a full moon, a partial lunar eclipse, a blood moon, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be a blood moon. You need to take it as a chance to say to yourself, okay, I need to see how I can do better, how I can be better. Even if I knew it was going to come, now it's happening. It's something physical, and the physical mirrors the spiritual and vice versa, because we as physical beings and this physical material universe mirrors the spiritual planes of existence, and we, the human being, have an effect. We who notice and who acknowledge and who perceive the physical universe can decide, because of something external, physical, material, to change something and grow in spirituality, to better our physical, material ways. So I see something like this as, yeah, it's known. Sure, they knew for many, many years already that on the 16th of July, right, or the 15th of Tammuz, however you want to see it, there's going to be a full moon and a lunar eclipse of some kind, a partial lunar eclipse. And our sages teach us that it's a bad omen. So I'm not going to say it's not a good omen or a bad omen as far as I'm concerned. It's just an omen, something that you see in the sky, right? The sky, which for all intents and purposes is infinite in human terms, is infinite. What can we learn from this? We can learn that, first of all, it's the earth that casts the shadow, the earth, the material, the ground, right? This marble that's floating around in space is casting its shadow, hiding the sun, casting a shadow on the moon, or going between the sun and the moon, casting a shadow. And this is what causes a lunar eclipse. This, like I said, it's a natural astronomical phenomena. Happens all the time, relatively speaking. And I think it's a chance to look inside of yourself, your inner sun, your inner moon, and figure out what I can do to make things better. Now, this is true to everyday life. It doesn't have to be something that happens in the sky, but there are things that happen in the sky because it's such an infinite thing, and because it's such a big thing, especially when it's especially a full moon. It's an amazing thing, a full moon. I back in my youth, I used to be an astronomy buff, and I had a nice little telescope. I used to do sun charts and watch the movements and lunar charts. And I mean, I would take I had a couple of my own, but I would use ones that were already there. For years, I watched through telescopes, through my telescope and a couple of others, I think, once or twice. Nothing major, but I loved it. I loved the fact that we are this, again, this marble floating through infinite space. And now, with current findings that say that the universe will keep expanding, it's even more infinite. What can we learn from this? And it's very, very basic. Better yourself. If you see something happening in the sky, think of how you should behave, right? The human being is the center of the universe in the sense that we have control, or when we relinquish control, then we have control. Something to that effect, something like that. So if you see that, first of all, whoever's watching that lunar eclipse tonight, I don't think so. I'm going to go to sleep soon. And it's supposed to happen later in the Netherlands, and it's supposed to be a little bit lower. But it's basically, what I want to say is this: the sun, the moon, the earth, they all exist within us, right? They are physical manifestations of spiritual planes or ideas or teachings, and we can learn things from the way that they interplay. And the fact that there's this earth material which is blocking the sun, seemingly blocking divinity, and causing a eclipse, and a blood one at that, it was for a long time considered a bad omen. But regardless of how you choose to see it, what I believe we should all take away from it is there are natural occurrences. They happen all the time, the good and the bad. And when we witness these, we need to figure out where we stand in this astronomical game. And where I like to stand is a place where I'm striving to be better. There's the saying in where is it, Jeremiah or Isaiah, that a time will come where the sun and the moon won't give their light. It will be the Most High, the Divine, which gives the light. Right? The sun and moon will be darkened, so to speak, and the light will be given by God. There will be this divine emanation, this divine revelation for all of humanity, and it will take the place of the sun and the moon, which we saw for many, many millennia or more, you know, hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of years as bad omens, as, you know, I mean, people were watching these things for, since time immemorial, we were watching the skies. So I hope we all have a wonderful lunar eclipse, a wonderful full moon. I don't think I touched on everything I wanted to, and I'm sure I rambled a bit, but what I want you to take away if you're watching this is this: better yourself. Hey, Rakesh Carpenter. Hi there. I hope you'll enjoy the moon wherever and whenever you see it. So let's find ways to better ourselves, regardless of whether it's a full moon, if it's waxing, if it's waning, if it's a partial eclipse or a full eclipse. These are astronomical phenomena that are supposed to be kind of guides. If you see a time where your material self, your earth, is eclipsing the moon, which gives the light of the sun. I'm in the Netherlands right now. Hey, James. Rakesh, I'm in the Netherlands right now. And they say that in the Netherlands you need to go up to a higher place in order to see it. I'm not going to stay up. I'm going to go to sleep very soon. It's been a long day. But I did want to come here and say this, also because it's Tuesday and I do the live stream, and also because it's an interesting thing to talk about, even though I probably, like I said, I didn't hit all the points I wanted to, and I don't want to ramble too much. But whenever things happen, yeah, James, all is well. I hope you're well. Whenever you see things happening in your life, you know, if we take this lunar eclipse as an analogy for life, when you see your material self, your earth, your physical, you know, self eclipsing that which gives you light in dark places, you need to stop and think and say, okay, something's going on here, and I need to figure out how I'm going to deal with this. So our sages say it's a good omen, it's a bad omen, whatever it is, but what is an omen? It means stop and think. An omen is just an omen. It's on you to make a decision which turns it into a good one or bad one eventually. We have the power to control. Again, by relinquishing control, we gain control. We have the power to decide if it will be a good omen or a bad omen. We need to act in a certain way. We are the movers and shakers of reality. So when they saw that moon in the sky start to be eclipsed by the earth and the material, it was considered a bad omen, I suppose, because I mean, there are many astrological and Kabbalistic reasons. I'm talking Hebrew astrology, not everyday or I don't know what name to call it, modern day astrology, if you will. So it's not a good omen and it's not a bad omen. It's not something to fear. It's something cool, to be sure. Right, so Rakesh, I was saying in the beginning that according to our sages, to the people of Israel, the Hebrew people, a lunar eclipse symbolizes something negative. But since it's a natural phenomenon, and these days we can predict when it's going to happen, whether it will be full or partial, a blood moon, a different kind of moon, we just need to take it as a sign that something is happening now. Take the opportunity. You know, we've been looking up at the sky for many, many years. We've been watching the movements of the constellations and of the sun and the moon and us in it. And where are we? We're a tiny little speck. We're here and we're gone. You know, when you're talking in astronomical times, is this true that eclipse is after 149 years? I don't know. What do you think? What do you say? I'm not sure. Tell me. I really don't know enough about the occurrences and the, you know, however long it takes between this one and that one. I know that when things are happening in the sky, like that infinite, you know, space, that field of potential that we have, which is symbolized by the stars. And again, when we're looking up at the sky, at the stars, we're looking into the past. Those stars gave their light, you know, billions and millions of years ago, and we're seeing it now. However you want to look at it, as a good omen or a bad omen, it's you who needs to make the decision. Is it, what am I going to do about it? Am I going to better my ways? Or am I going to just let my material self eclipse the spiritual that gives me light? How am I going to face this? How am I going to deal with it? So I'm not saying that the eclipse is a good thing or a bad thing, whether solar or lunar. I'm just saying that when things are happening in high places and we get to witness it manifest in a physical way, it's there to teach us something, since we are the ones who are observing, we are the ones who are perceiving and acknowledging what's going on. Regardless, it's a natural phenomenon, and so are we. So we can choose what to do about it. And we can choose to say, all right, something's going on here. And now it's being shown like more clearly. There's something major going on. But the truth is that we have the power to better ourselves and to do good things, to be good people, to lead righteous lives, meaningful lives. And this is the decision I feel we need to come to every day, you know. But when we have something like this going on, a full moon which is being partially eclipsed, it's something like grand, and it doesn't happen very often. So it was seen as an opportunity, much like the Day of Atonement, or, you know, in the Hebrew calendar, or other days, holidays, festivals, things having to do with the weather, things having to do with the sky. They are there for us to observe, acknowledge, perceive in some way, and make a decision according to it. In the very same way, we could look and see infinity in a grain of sand and come to the exact same conclusion. It's just that when we see something like this high in the sky, the untouchable moon, right? That waxes and wanes, that is filled and is drained, and which the cycle, right? We're talking about the cycle. It revolves around us. We both revolve around the sun. That whole thing, right? The sun is, and the Milky Way, you know, it's the whole thing. It's all a cycle. It's like Ecclesiastes, right? King Solomon says that it's all a circle. You know, a generation comes and a generation goes, and the earth stands. So let's take this as an opportunity, not to see it as any kind of an omen, not even as any kind of a sign, but to see it as something amazing that happens, not very often, and as a chance for us to better ourselves, plain and simple. Because if we don't see infinity in a grain of sand, and if we don't perceive the things at the everyday level, right, at the level of the mundane and the prosaic, let's say, because life, you know, just goes on. When we see something like that going on in the sky, it's something that means to us, it's something that should convey to us, pay attention. Let's see. Hey, Robin. No, I am not an astrologer, not by any means. I am a Hebrew man, and I do believe in the concept of astrology in the Hebrew sense, which is very ancient. I mean, all astrology is ancient, but I don't think that the stars, the moon, and the sun have an effect on us as like a deterministic kind of thing that we have nothing to do with or about. I just feel that we can notice these things going on and say to ourselves, all right, where am I in all this? The moon is huge, the sun is huge, the earth is huge, and I'm just this one in billions. But I have the power to change everything around me, including the sun, including the moon, right? Metaphorically, figuratively speaking, my sun, my moon, my earth. I mean, I know that I do things that cast a shadow. I have my material self, my earth element, that is casting a shadow on that which gives me light in dark places, much like the moon. So once in a while, there's this physical expression or manifestation of this. And so it was seen as a very monumental event, a good omen, a bad omen. But the truth is that this is every single day if we want it to be. So is there, hey, I mean, I've got a few people here on the chat. Does anyone want to jump in here? Does anyone want to say anything, ask anything? If not, then I shall say goodbye and good night and happy full moon. So I'm going to give it a few seconds here. I'll just, we'll see if where am I? I'm in the Netherlands right now. And where are you, Robin? Ah, there's nothing like silence in cinema. I'm also a student of cinema, and I'm a screenwriter by trade. You're in India. Good for you. Another very ancient place. I recently started watching a video on the origins of Hinduism, and it's said that it's the most ancient religion in the world. And I was like, wait a minute, isn't the Hebrew faith? I mean, they must be at least. It's not a competition or a contest, but the Hebrew faith and the Hindu faith, they must have some. I mean, they must have been around at the same time. Maybe not, but certainly those two. Maybe also. Well, anyway, the Hindu faith and the Hebrew faith certainly have a lot, some things in common. I mean, some things. I mean, you have many gods, but I believe that those gods, if I'm not mistaken, are all a manifestation of this singular divine entity, if you will. Let's see. Oh, Sandam, nice. Have I visited India? No. Ah. Sorry, Anshu. Sorry to disappoint you. But, wow, that's interesting. I guess, well, you know what? I've been doing this for almost a year. So to those who came here for an eclipse, my apologies. It's not going to be here. I'm in my room and I'm doing the thing I've been doing for almost a year now, which is a live stream every Tuesday and Friday for 10, 20 minutes. And I'm over 20 minutes now, but that's cool. My apologies, Anshu. If there's anyone else here that wants an eclipse, I could point the I could point the camera out there, but it's still light here in the Netherlands, and it was said that in the Netherlands it's going to be very, very low. The moon will be very low, so I need to go up higher. But like I said, I'm not going to be viewing it. I did in my youth, like I said, well, I was more into astronomy. For sure. Hey, enjoy it. I hope you find Anshu. I hope you find one. I hope that you get to witness it either in the flesh or through. What's the time in the Netherlands? Why, it's what is it? Close to 10. Yeah, it's almost 10 p.m. Almost 10 p.m. And I think it's going to happen later. I mean, the sun goes down here so late. I mean, I'm only here. I've been here for a year, and I'm here, I think, for 2 more years. But I originally came from Israel. The sun here is so difficult to get used to. I'm used to the sun going down not that late. To have daylight after 10 p.m. is crazy. It's really crazy. So yeah, that's the time in the Netherlands. I hope you do get to see it, Anshu. So to the rest of you, enjoy the eclipse, and remember, it's not a good omen, it's not a bad omen. I mean, those thoughts have some merit, but they have to do with you, first of all. If you're witnessing something going on in the sky, think of it as something going on, or the potential of something going on inside of yourself. And just like you are one human being in this huge universe, but you have an effect on yourself and on others around you, see it in the same way. Take this as an opportunity to better yourself in whatever way that however you want to view it. However you want to view it. I'll say good night and good moon. Have a wonderful lunar eclipse. I'll see you guys on Friday. See ya.